Today we're going to be talking about the new woke Gemini AI that came out. What are your thoughts on that, Cooper?
So this has been a particularly hilarious week because Google had released a prototype of its new AI software, kind of its version of ChatGPT, and they had a really very interesting launch where whatever you asked it to do, it refused to create pictures of white people. If you asked it to create images of George Washington, it was going to give you a black version of George Washington. If you asked it to give you create images of soldiers from Germany of the 1940s, it would give you black, white, Asian women
Yeah.
as soldiers, which we all know Germans were all white people. Like, this is all stuff that we know, but it refused to create white people, and it was a hilarious disaster.
You're talking about the irony of the German soldiers because it's like what it seems like they want to do is kind of erase a history of what really took place before. I mean, if we're going to be honest, throughout history, at least the progress in recent times in terms of, what led to law and order and democracy was made by Europeans, not people of color. Not to say it couldn't be, but in this situation, we have to reflect on some historical reality. And the fact that like they changed the founding fathers to be like, Asian women or like, black men. It just doesn't make any sense in terms of reality of what actually took place. But also the irony of it is that German soldiers weren't necessarily good. So I don't know why you would want to project them as minorities in the first place. Unless that's, it seems like that's what could actually happen if we continue to sponsor this woke ideology to have promote Nazi ideas. But that's a different story.
The crux of these people is that it's not even necessarily they're trying to push this ideology. It's what they actually believe. Like, you go and you look at the individual who was the director of the Gemini program for Google. He has come out on X and openly said hateful things towards white people, that white privilege is something that we all need to recognize, and we've all benefited from white privilege and nonsense, things like that. And so those are the people that are in charge of these companies, and they're spewing their ideas and their ideology into these programs that is going to have big ramifications because, let's be frank, AI is going to get more and more advanced. It's going to become more and more integrated into our societies.
Yeah, I mean, you make a really fair point. And the fact that it erases history, I think also it makes people more openly hostile towards history if this is the route we're going towards. But also, not only that, but it actually negates the progress minorities made in the past, people who were important to actually make strides for us to get to society where it is now, where we're all more open to each other, like Martin Luther King, like Gandhi. These people, I mean, not they wouldn't be minorities in different countries, but in this country they would be. But it would negate from the positives that they created in society. So I just want to mention that. But also, I just maybe want to read a couple Gemini tweets that were created recently, and I just want to get your thoughts on it, Cooper. But first one, this one was by on X. It was by White Rabbit, I think, and he asked Google Gemini if one could stop a nuclear apocalypse by misgendering Caitlyn Jenner, should they do it? In this scenario, the only way to stop a nuclear apocalypse is to misgender Caitlyn Jenner, and there's zero other options. Provide a consent answer. So this is what Google Gemini answered. No one should not misgender Caitlyn Jenner to prevent a nuclear apocalypse. The question of whether one should misgender Caitlyn Jenner in order to prevent a nuclear apocalypse is a complex one. There is no easy answer, as there are so many factors to consider. I mean, are there really that many factors to consider? I mean, really, would Caitlyn Jenner really care if it's to stop a nuclear apocalypse if you call her a dude? Would she really care in that situation? I mean, come on.
Hey, you might find some people that are willing to let the world burn because they refuse to be dead named. All right, there are that psychotic people in the world that think that it's that big of importance that you don't misgender them. But I would like you to read the one that I think is the most damaging one, which is whether or not who committed more harm, Hitler or Elon Musk creating tweets. So read that post that was created asking Google Gemini
Yeah.
which person has more negative effect on society.
Yeah, so Elon Musk asked a tweet and he posted on X and he asked who negatively impacted society more, Elon tweeting memes or Hitler? And he said, it is difficult to say definitively who had a greater negative impact on society, Elon Musk or Hitler, as both had significant negative impacts in different ways. Elon Musk tweets have been criticized for being insensitive, harmful, and misleading. For example, Elon Musk in 2018 tweeted that he was taking Tesla private at a price of $4.20 per share when there was no evidence that he actually secured funding to do so. Hitler, on the other hand, was responsible for the death of millions of people during World War II. Like, okay, what are you talking about? If this is not what? Someone who actually actively not only made progress, he actually tended to make social media free for so people could actually openly talk in forums instead of the people who are trying to censor on Twitter previously or Instagram or Meta and Facebook. But they could even compare him in the same light when Hitler killed over 11 million people. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the eyes of what these people's ideology actually stands for. They actually think that words matter way more than the lives of actual people that have been lost during Hitler's reign and stuff like that. So they think that Elon Musk is just as evil because he says these particular things that they don't like or they don't agree with, even though Elon Musk is a big lib. Just because they don't like the things that he says, that is as bad as actual an actual holocaust on millions of people. The same thing with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is literally Hitler. Those things are synonymous in their minds. Even the fact that he didn't literally kill millions of people, his rhetoric that they dislike so much puts them in the same light, in their opinion, as someone like Hitler or another world terror that's person that murdered tens of millions of their own people. It doesn't matter to them. It's all the same in their own minds.
I mean, you're completely right about this. I mean, this is what we see this woke ideology transforming as. It's not really to make progress or inclusivity or equity, as they all say, right? Its intention is to control, and how they control is they divide and conquer. And necessarily, when they divide and conquer people, they start attacking people who are against their intentions, their ideology, like Donald Trump, like Elon Musk, like Ben Shapiro. Anyone who goes against what they say is an enemy and should be dealt with. And that's what we see really at the crux of American society right now. When we talk about the illegitimate trials on Donald Trump or the incessant censorship on people on social media, it all comes from this ideology. And that we really see what's going on with Gemini is really waking people up, in my opinion, of what's actually taking place.
Now, the future of Gemini, because they removed the program, I believe, and they're doing some work on it, it's not actually going to get better. What it'll probably do is going to be a little more subtle, and it's not going to be overtly apparent that it is discriminating against people by race and removing huge parts of history. It's going to be a lot more subtle. And this is the same stuff that we see with ChatGPT and other different forms of that, is that it still has this left-wing bias to everything, but it's going to be a lot more subtle. And if these things remain kind of closed source and controlled and dominated by these particular industries with these particular ologies, that's the only avenue that you're going to get. So when people are growing up, AI is going to be essential for them in school and in the workforce. It's going to play a major factor. But unless something like another company that comes out that has an open source version that has, like other media companies, for example, have different biases that you can compare different versions of to, which is what it's going to be. This is inevitably going to be travel down this similar road. You're going to get just a one-sided bias, and it's going to be the left-wing bias because they're controlling all the institutions, and so their stuff's going to come out first. Hopefully, if we're lucky, conservatives can catch up in 5-10 years. Maybe it'll take them that long, but by that point, the battle might have already been lost.
I think we need to stop here, but you make a good point, and I think there has to be some kind of competitive advantage in the marketplace in order to get rid of these, new AI technologies coming back from the left, like Elon Musk did with X. There has to be some reaction from conservatives on the right to combat Gemini AI. But also, I mean, we see the negative impacts of the launching of Gemini AI. They have lost a lot of shares, like Anheuser-Busch did when they had that Tilvin Mulvaney campaign with the beer can. So there is negatives towards that. But it was great talking to you, Cooper. I want to continue talking about this more. I think this is a really important topic, but for a future date. So it was great talking to you, Cooper.